This is Audible.
The Wrong Man, Right and Wrong, Book 2. Written by Lane Hayes. Narrated by Michael Ferriolo. One. Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment. Buddha. It isn't possible to be happy all the time, but I'd recently decided contentment was a strong second option. I looked around my store 15 minutes before closing and noted the shelves of knickknacks and pillowcases I needed to restock. The floor should be swept, the mirrors could use a good cleaning, and someone had left an empty coffee cup on an antique entry table. In spite of the additional hour or more it would take to get B-goods ready for business the next day, this store was my reason for contentment, and it certainly was one of my greatest sources of happiness. However, it was getting harder to ignore. I was feeling slightly restless and less than content in my personal life. I picked up the lip balm I kept next to the register and gave myself a mental smack upside the head as I applied the waxy substance liberally. Nothing positive ever came from sitting around feeling sorry for yourself. The best thing to do was clean up, head home to change into some sexy clubwear, and treat myself to a night out. Maybe I'd go dancing. Or maybe... Brandon, did you hear me? I glanced sideways to find Lizzie, one of my employees, staring at me expectantly. Her big blue eyes and long strawberry blonde hair gave her a sweetly innocent look I bet a majority of straight men found attractive. Me? Not so much. However, I admired her effortless style and friendly nature. Both were a major plus since her job was to sell high-end home accessories to my eclectic clientele, which ranged from movie stars and rock stars to yoga moms and Hollywood execs. My store's West Hollywood location had a wonderfully diverse population. It wasn't merely a mecca for all things rainbow-colored and fabulous. Sorry, sugar. Replay. What did you say? I'm dog-sitting for my hunky new neighbor. He's a firefighter. Delicious. His name is... I tuned her out. Lizzie could gab for hours, non-stop, about inconsequential details. There were days I was charmed, but others I wished she'd shut the hell up. Today she'd been particularly chatty, and it was grating on my every last nerve. I was anxious to send her home so I could take care of the cleanup on my own. Anyway, the poor guy's 13 years old, and he doesn't want to leave him alone while he's at work. Isn't that the sweetest? Huh? What 13-year-old kid wants a babysitter? You better watch it, Lizzie. If the man is looking for a nanny, I sense trouble. Steer clear. I knew you weren't listening. Mac is a dog, not a teenager. Anywho, Jake the Dreamboat asked if I'd watch him till he got back from work tomorrow. So, is it cool if I bring him by for a quick hello? Who? Jack or Mac? Dreamboats are always welcome. Drooling sidekicks, not so much. It's Jake, not Jack, and never mind. I can tell you're in a mood. Lizzie cast her eyes skyward and sashayed toward the front of the store to retrieve the errant coffee cup. I reached for the lip balm again, but quickly put it back and stepped out from behind the counter. I walked toward the white contemporary-style sofa and armchair anchoring the midsection of the store and started fluffing the countless colorful pillows before addressing my employee's cryptic dig at my mood. I wasn't moody. I didn't do moody. Whatever was she talking about? Sure, I had my moments like anyone else, but I was better at leaving my grievances behind than most people. I adopted a pleasant attitude of indulgent curiosity when I looked at Lizzie and asked, "Whatever do you mean?" She waltzed to the counter, tossed the empty cup in the trash, and turned to confront me with both hands on her hips. Ever since you broke up with Trevor, you've been cranky. I'm sorry, but it's true. You're still you, don't get me wrong. You're as fabulous as ever, but... Oh, thank God, I thought sarcastically, as if. The day I started worrying about what Lizzie thought about my fabulosity, I'd be in big fucking trouble. I snorted as I adjusted the design books on the leather-upholstered ottoman. What could it possibly hurt to say yes once in a while? She was still talking? I glanced up and saw her smug, "You didn't hear a word I said" look. I should fire her for insubordination, I mused. Of course I wouldn't. I liked her too much. Lizzie was irritating at times, but the fact she was willing to stand up to me when I was a smidge temperamental was refreshing. Yes, there. Happy now? Oh, Brandon! Lizzie clapped her hands and jumped up and down like a schoolgirl. What did I say yes to? You're the best! Want me to start sweeping in the back while you take care of Mrs. Hirschfield? I inwardly groaned at the sound of my name being sung out to the accompaniment of a dozen golden bangles jangling around my client's wrist. Dora Hirschfeld was a prominent Hollywood producer's wife and one of my most loyal customers. She had a fortune to spend, and I was grateful she chose to spend quite a bit of it at B. Goods. She claimed to love my sense of style, but I knew she also loved me. I entertained her with a campy, fun-loving gay man shtick that had become part of our traditional repartee over the few years I'd known her. Most days I slipped with ease into that role, but today I was going to have to dig deep and work through the resentment of having to play a stereotype to please my wealthy customer. I pasted a wide, welcoming grin on my mug and sternly reprimanded myself. This was Hollywood, baby. Everyone was an actor, though the stage might vary from person to person. My stage was this store, and I owed it to my audience, my clients, to give them the Brandon good they expected. The guy who would entertain and fawn over them as they meandered around the spacious floor, perusing the newest fashions in home design. If I played my part well, my client left B. Goods with a smile and a huge bag stuffed with expensive pillows and accessories. Mrs. H., how are you? Please tell me you came to see the brand new Gabe Marston prints. They are divine. I'm not exaggerating either. Come with me. How is Mr. Hirschfeld and Sasha? Brandon, you're a delight. Mr. H. is the same. The man works too much, but my poor Sasha has been through the ringer. Shocks and antibiotics. The vet said my little pumpkin is doing well, but I worry. I know you do. She's so lucky you're her mama. Let me show you something to cheer you up. Mrs. Hirschfeld's late appearance delayed closing time, but I didn't mind. She'd spent $2,000 on the prints and given me a referral for a showbiz connection who wanted to redo his master bedroom. I wasn't sure I had time for additional design projects, but I'd happily talk to her friend. You never knew what might come up. Networking in this town was a must. I'd learned early on to cherish friend-of-a-friend relationships. They'd proven to be some of my most lucrative connections. Lizzie cleaned mirrors and straightened accessories while I tended to my customer, but I sent her home when Mrs. Hirschfeld left. I wanted to turn on my tunes, get in the zone, and do my thing. I wanted to keep my hands busy and the music too loud for coherent thought. I hated feeling out of sorts, and Lizzie was right. I hadn't been myself since Trevor left. It made no sense. Trevor had not been the love of my life. I'd always known we weren't destined to have a long romance. The man was too self-absorbed and too caught up with how things looked. Perhaps that sounded a bit hypocritical. After all, like every West Hollywood gay man, I had bought into the idea image was everything. But in a lasting relationship, I was pretty sure you needed to look beyond the superficial. You should be able to be yourself, and he should love the real you, warts and all, just like in the movies. So why was I sad? I didn't love Trevor, and he didn't love me. The sex had been great, I'd miss that for sure. But let's face it, the conversation had been dull. If we weren't discussing his next audition or how fantastic his abs looked, they were impressive, he lost interest quickly. It was time to move on. He made it easy to do when he admitted he was kinda hot for a fellow out-of-work actor. Some guy he'd met at the bistro where he worked until he was discovered. My big mistake was letting him move in, because it took him a full week to get his shit out of my house after he'd come clean. A whole week of looking at his crap and willing myself not to give in to the overwhelming desire to throw his stuff on the lawn. I couldn't do it to my neighbors, though. It wasn't their fault my judgment had been impaired by a hunky, well-hung man. A month had gone by since I'd said adieu to traitorous Trevor. It was April now. Spring had officially come to Southern California, and Los Angeles was experiencing the kind of weather the rest of the nation could rightfully be jealous about. 75-degree sunny days with only a 10-degree drop at night. Perfect. I should be breathing in the fresh air and a sigh of relief, not wallowing in an uncharacteristically maudlin state. I reminded myself each lover since my very first faux pas at age 17 had taught me something about myself, about what I needed in my life and what I would never put up with. Those past lovers were simply handsome placeholders until the real deal came along. However, I wasn't one to waste any time waiting on a man. I was better off alone for now, and thankfully I liked my own company. I shook my hips to an up-tempo Beyoncé song as I restocked one of the barren shelves. This pity party was officially over. By Friday afternoon, I was ready for the weekend. There was no such thing as time off in retail, but as the boss, I was generally able to schedule my time as I pleased. I was fortunate to have trustworthy employees to help out when needed, like Fridays at closing. It was the one night I liked to be out the door by 6 o'clock so I could relax and wind down before I wound myself back up for a night on the town. I looked at my watch mournfully. I wasn't going anywhere early tonight. Lizzie was out for the day, Josh had an appointment at 4, and Lorenzo was leaving as soon as he finished flirting with Mr. Gowan, a 70-year-old regular who had a thing for hot young Latino men. I smiled cheerfully as I rang up the younger mother balancing a drooling toddler on her hip. "Let me help you take these to your car. Where did you park?" I grabbed the bags and hastened around the counter before she could protest. "Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm just out front," she gushed as she struggled to manage the baby and steer the stroller toward the entry. She led the way to a white Range Rover parked nearby. I hefted the bags into her trunk while she situated the baby. We chatted about her daughter and the perils of teething. I really had no idea what we were discussing, but I made an effort to nod sympathetically when her worried tone gave me the cue to do so. The ability to talk about anything from baby teeth to the best sushi restaurants in town was an ideal skill set in the interior design biz. I'd honed my craft well over the years, though I doubted anyone really thought I knew shit about teething toddlers. I waved goodbye and turned toward the large square topiaries flanking either side of the glass entrance to Be Goods, stopping in the middle of the sidewalk with one hand on my hip. The sight of Lizzie pulling a large dog behind her on a leash made me smile. I didn't know much about dogs, but I could tell this one was old. I shielded my eyes from the late afternoon sun and waited as the duo neared the store. "Lizzie, are you walking that dog or are you dragging her?" "Ha ha, and it's him," she said with a grin as she bent to scratch the top of the dog's head. "He's such a good boy, aren't you, Mac?" Her voice took on a syrupy quality as she addressed the canine, who amazingly enough seemed to grin at her. Did dogs do that? "Huh? This handsome old man is Mac, my neighbor's dog, remember? I told you I was watching him while he was at what—" "Yes, the hunky firefighter, I remember." "Exactly. He'll be here to pick Mac up by 6:30 at the latest. I really appreciate this, Brandon. I can't wait to get to Palm Springs." "Whoa! What are you talking about?" Lizzie lowered her sunglasses and scowled at me. I noticed for the first time she was carrying a small overnight bag on one shoulder. Her long hair was pulled back in a high ponytail, and she was wearing form-fitted aqua-colored pants, a cute t-shirt with some funny calligraphy, and a smart pair of Tory Burch flats. She definitely looked like she was going somewhere, not just out to walk a dog. "I knew you weren't listening. I asked you the other